program has been pre-recorded, so please hold your calls.
Welcome to Conspiracies Against Wellness with your host, Janelle Elgaway.
Good evening and welcome to Conspiracies Against Wellness. I'm your host, Janelle Elgaway. If you have questions for our guest tonight, please call in at 415-915-2291. And please chat with our audience on YouTube Live at Conspiracies Against Wellness livestream. Tonight's guest is Reverend Ronald Doc Myers. The New York Times says there aren't many doctors like Ronald Myers, a jazz-playing, Baptist-preaching family practitioner whose dream has always been to practice medicine in the kind of place most doctors wouldn't even think or stop for a tank of gas. Welcome, Reverend Doc Myers. How are you this evening?
Oh, doing wonderful. Good to be on your program.
Well, we are so happy to have you. Can you please tell me a little bit about your background and who you are?
Okay, well, my medical background, I graduated from the University of Wisconsin Medical School in 1985 and completed residency in family practice in 1988, and I've been here in the Mississippi Delta, the poorest counties in America. Holmes County has the least life expectancy of any county in the United States. If you're born there, you're going to die sooner than any other American, and I've been serving the poorest of our people in America. It's called America's Third World here in the Mississippi Delta for over 30 years. I'm also a jazz musician, so I hit the trumpet and the keyboards and do concerts to help raise money for my foundation, the Myers Foundation, and also I'm the first ordained and commissioned medical missionary to the Mississippi Delta, America's poorest region in the history of the African American church. So I'm a minister, I'm a musician, I'm a jazz musician, and an advocate for the poor, chronic pain patients, and disenfranchised.
Wow, okay. What was your specialty early on when you were practicing?
Family practice is my specialty.
Okay. Why did you start advocating for the African-American physicians, sickle cell communities, all of them?
Well, I became, of course, aware of sickle cell growing African-American in America because over 90% of those who have sickle cell anemia, which is a genetic disease that causes the red blood cells to sickle during a pain crisis, and can cause permanent damage to those areas and capillaries where the cells are sickling. And so I became aware of the need for sickle cell patients to have good medical care. I did a month residency in hematology while I was a third-year medical student, and I've been an advocate for sickle cell patients getting the care they need. And it's just a disastrous situation now in America because sickle cell patients are dying at alarming rates. The average life expectancy for a sickle cell patient was 48. Now it's down to 30 because of the hysteria of the opioid crisis and the fact that African-American sickle cell patients are showing up to the emergency rooms and they won't get proper care. And the doctors use the excuses, CDC guidelines. They don't want to use the medical license because if you look at the CDC guidelines, which I don't like, Section 43 says that if a sickle cell patient comes to you and you must follow NIH guidelines for the treatment of sickle cell patient, which includes oxygen, hydration, and opioids. Give them enough pain medicine, take their pain away, and titrate them down. If this is not done, those cells that sickle will become hard and block those capillaries. If there's not proper treatment with hydration, oxygen, and opioid medication, those cells will stay and block those capillaries, and that part of the body will no longer function. So sickle cell patients, when they get to the emergency rooms, they're called drug addicts, and they're drug seeking, and they've been dying in the cabs, dying at home, and the life expectancy is now from 48 down to 30 thanks to the hysteria of this opioid crisis. And it's really something, because you don't hear Dr. Oz talk about it. You don't look on Dr. Oz program, and he has African-American family members talking about their loved ones who died from sickle cell from inadequate abusive treatment in emergency rooms. You don't see Dr. Gupta talk about it on CNN. But they raise all these issues about the opioid crisis, this, and the opioid crisis, that. But the opioid crisis, the reaction to it, hysteria, is killing sickle cell patients.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, so is this really a African-American disease, or is it a anybody disease?
Well, because of the legacy of slavery, remember, sickle cell is a genetic disease. So people are born with the cells that sickle in the genes. So, yes, you can have a European white person with sickle cell. In fact, if you go to Asia, most of the people with sickle cell are Asian. And if you go to India, most of the people who have sickle cell are Indian. In the United States, because of the legacy of slavery, and so many Africans coming over here, and they're, of course, the legacy and the continuation of the gene coming down the genetic lines of African Americans. In this country, most of those people who suffer from sickle cell are African American.
Okay. Do you know how many African Americans, like 1 in whatever? Is it 1 in 500?
Yes, 1 in 500 African Americans have sickle cell, which is the SS2, the S genes coming together, and they have a combination of 2 SS genes. They have sickle cell. And there are a lot more African Americans that carry the S, which is why the Black Panther Party in the 1970s, the first community organization to raise awareness for sickle cell, they called it Black Genocide. The fact that hospitals and clinics were ignoring sickle cell patients, allowing them to die. So the Black Panther Party, thank you so much, Bobby Seale, and they demanded treatment and testing for sickle cell patients. So they got together with black physicians and began to change the healthcare system, and they began to respond with testing. So it's important to get your blood tested for sickle cell to find out if you're carrying the trait, because if you get carrying the trait and the person that you're with and having a child with is carrying the trait, there'd be 1 in 4 chance of the children having sickle cell. So sickle cell is a black genocide. And what I mean by genocide is the purposeful policies of a government, a group of people, to let a certain segment of human beings die. Right. And that's what we experience with sickle cell.
You asked me to look up the definition, and I wanted to read that. The definition from the dictionary is the deliberate killing of a large group of people, especially those of a particular ethnic group or nation. So it's the deliberate and systematic extermination of a national, racial, political, or cultural group. And the synonyms are mass murder, mass homicide, massacre, more annihilation, extermination, elimination, liquidation, eradication, decimation, butchery, bloodletting, ethnic cleansing, and Holocaust, a tyrant of genocide. What does genocide mean to you exactly?
Well, we talked about the fact that sickle cell patients are dying at horrendous rates, life expectancy down to 48 to 30 because of government policies for the so-called opioid crisis and the purposeful ignoring the needs of the sickle cell population by hospitals, emergency rooms, and clinics, and letting these people die. And which that's the black genocide that the Black Panther Party accused the United States medical system when it comes to sickle cell patients. And we're returning, and I'm calling it this horrendous death rate from 48 to 30. There's no excuse for that in this country. Right. And the death rate is beginning to drop so low back to the 70s when the Black Panther Party called it black genocide. And now we see genocide with pain patients. And I'm saying that there's...
It's physicians, though, too, isn't it? I mean,
yes,
I'd like to know your story a little bit.
Now we're seeing genocide amongst chronic pain patients because there are policies by the government, the Department of Justice, the DEA are going after doctors, persecuting them for treating chronic pain patients, giving them jail time, many times innocent physicians, taking away all their assets to forfeit a seizure, and destroying their lives because they treat sickle cell patients. In my case, as an ordained Baptist medical missionary dedicating his life to serving the poorest Americans, I've been on Nightline with Terry Kopp, with Connie Chung, Today's Show, front page New York Times, front page of the Washington Post, Ebony Magazine, every major publication across the entire world, Japan, South America. I'm known for my advocacy for the poor and treating poor people and treating chronic pain patients adequately because this population needs service. So what they do to me? Well, they came in, charged me with false charges, saying I was involved with racketeering, murder 1, murder 2, dispensing a narcotic for non-medical purposes, maintaining a dwelling for the purpose of selling illegal drugs, because I'm treating patients with opioids who have chronic pain. Arrested me, had to put up money for bail, and then never went to court because they didn't have no case.
Wow. So, and you were the only doctor in your practice that they targeted, correct?
Yes, they went after all the physicians, but I was the only African-American physician and a noted national, international advocate for the treatment of chronic pain patients. So, and I would blame and target the truth of the Department of Justice, DEA, and they weren't happy with me like they weren't happy with Malcolm X. They weren't happy with Martin Luther King Jr. weren't happy with Nelson Mandela. They weren't happy with Frederick Douglass, and we all as effective advocates for people as black leaders. They always put the criminal justice system on us. So right now, I don't have a medical license. I have not been to court. I've been sitting around for 3 years. You hear me?
Wow.
3 years in what I call justice limbo.
Yes, yes. I know when we spoke originally, you were sharing the history on the drugs that flooded the U.S. black communities, and why did the government do that, and what happened exactly? Because I want people to understand, where you're coming from on all this and why this is going on.
Well, let's talk about the history of the government going after its own citizens when it comes to opioid. The first act passed by Congress was the Harrison Act of 1914, which began the restriction of opioids to the American public. And the reason why they passed the Harrison Act is because they used the excuse of the Negro brain syndrome. They said that if narcotics got to the hands of Negroes, they had a brain syndrome where they would rape white women.
Right.
So they hurried up and passed that Harrison Act of 1914, and then again they tried to put the same type of thing on men of Chinese descent. This got us all the way to Richard Nixon in the efforts that he was successful with in passing the Controlled Substances Act. And he said we must pass this act because if narcotics get into the use in black males, they'll rape white women. I'm just telling you historic facts. So the Controlled Substances Act was passed, but Nixon did apologize to the African American community for the lack of treatment for sickle cell, and he was the first United States president to advocate and provide millions of dollars for sickle cell. But the history of the government going after its own people when it comes to opioids was targeted at black males. Now remember Iran-Contra. Now we're in Ronald Reagan's time with Oliver North. Well, what they did, they flooded the black community with drugs. And the government purposely dispensed drugs in black communities across America. And they use a person by the name of Highway Rick, and he wrote a book about it, how he worked with the CIA just to make sure that these drugs went into all these black communities. So now we're at present time, and we have this doctor by the name of Dr. Kalandi, who's supposed to be this with PROP, which is an organization designed to stop chronic pain patients from getting the care they need. And he had enough nerve to talk about the addiction problem and drug opioid problem in the black community. But he didn't mention the Harrison Act. But he didn't mention the Controlled Substances Act. And he did not mention that during Iran-Contra, all the drugs that flooded into the black community. So we are the initial victims of the government's attack against its citizens for the use of opioids, even to the point where the government was involved in distributing cocaine and other drugs into our community during the Iran-Contra illegal situation with Ronald Reagan and Oliver North. That's the truth. And I'm not going to hide that because I'm African American. It makes some people uncomfortable. They don't want to talk about it, but it's the facts. So when we get involved with advocacy for opioids, we don't forget that. We're not going to forget the history, especially the flooding of our community with illegal and illicit drugs by the government. So I'm supposed to trust this government now? A government through its Department of Justice and DEA persecuting physicians, not just black physicians, but all physicians of color and white physicians, because they're treating and giving needed care to chronic pain patients who need opioids. Now, there's a difference between a chronic pain patient and an addict. Chronic pain patients are not addicts. And people have been lied to. They were saying, well, you know, if you take these narcotics, it's going to turn you into a junkie. I was just watching a news report the other night. Well, a woman said her son took a prescription of Percocet and it turned him into a junkie, and he turned to heroin and died. That's ridiculous.
Well,
now,
yeah.
It's just a bunch of lies. For instance, have you taken cough medicine with codeine or cough medicine with Lortab liquid?
Right.
Did it turn you into a junkie?
Nope.
Ridiculous, because
you're going to be a junkie. Like, sorry, I don't like to use that word, but if you're an addict and you have that gene, you're going to be that no matter what, whenever you take it. It doesn't matter if you've tried, you know, a hydrocodone or not. But that's what they're pushing. That is what they want us to know, you know. And I was remembering Dr. Klein was telling us, because I had him on, I have him on often, and he was saying, because he's done a lot of studying on this too, you know, they love to be able to push that whole, you know, story. And it's not even with, you know, the sickle cell and African American communities or people of different races. Now they're doing it with, you know, just a junkie or an addict in general. If somebody that's an addict in general, that's what they're pushing. They're pushing that, they rape women. They do this. They do that. And all of it is just lies. It's spread on fear, myths, and mistruths. And
And it's your government, and it's your government's the one doing it.
Exactly.
And so just like with this,
like that.
That's why I'm calling it genocide. Policies that a government set up for a certain group of population, identifying it first like the Black Panthers did for sickle cell patients. Now I'm saying that's the same thing the government is doing with chronic pain patients. Remember, 70 to 80% of people who abuse prescription narcotic drugs have never seen a doctor. They get the pills off the street. And now we have the horrendous problem of illegal drugs coming from China and Mexico. Fentanyl, which is 100 times more potent than a doctor's prescription for fentanyl, carfentanil, cocaine, heroin are coming across the borders, killing thousands of Americans. And what do they say? Well, we got an opioid crisis and most people are dying from opioid overdoses. But they didn't tell you the opioid people that are using and dying from illegal and illicit drugs. What we have here, America, is an illegal and illicit opioid drug epidemic. Prince, the great musician, did not die from a doctor's prescription. He got some illegal drugs off the street, laced with fentanyl, and he died. Right. But the governments continue to what? Attack its own citizens with these lies and abuse, causing the death of thousands of people, leading to the horrendous suicide rates against chronic pain patients. Many of them are veterans. And they're continuing to persecute physicians, and physicians are abandoning their patients who need the medications for their chronic pain because they're scared they're going to lose their medical license. They don't want to end up like Ron Myers, right, losing his medical license in 4 states, and his crime was the correct, compassionate treatment of people who have chronic pain and being an advocate for sickle cell patients. And I'm telling you, we must come together and stop this government genocide against chronic pain patients.
Was this the plan all along by the government? Was it a genocide of all communities that are sick, poor, different cultures, different races? What do you believe on that?
Well, I just think it's blatant. The problem is the people need to wake up and see it. And that's why we're having a congressional briefing on chronic pain on April 25th at the U.S. Capitol with members of Congress. We've scheduled a white coat protest rally for the first time in history. I got doctors bringing their white coats, and we're going to stand in front of the Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions' office, with picket signs, and we're going to have a memorial service right outside the Department of Justice to remember those people in chronic pain who chose suicide over living in pain because the Justice Department, the DA, persecuted their physicians to abandon them, and they get proper treatment. So, yes, if the government is allowed to continue with what they're doing in terms of what they're doing to doctors who treat chronic pain patients and making the needed medicines stopping off and beginning to block the needed medicines that chronic pain patients need, leading to their deaths. Yes, that's purposeful policy, and I'm calling it chronic pain patient genocide by definition. Yes, there is in my opinion, there is a purposeful policy for this government to see chronic pain patients, that population, die. And that's what's happening right now. And we must pay attention to it, fight it, expose it, and stop it.
Okay, so you have a rally in April, and it's going to be 3 days. Can you go through what you're going to be doing every day, and if people want to join in, how do they do that? Where can people find the information on that?
Well, I've been blessed to be the founder and president of the American Pain Institute, and I was also founder and co-founder of and medical director of the National Pain Patients Coalition. And we started Pain Patients Advocacy Week back in 2005, following our 2003 and 2004 America's in Pain March on Washington, Silent No More. So this is my third March on Washington to advocate for chronic pain treatment in America. This always takes place on the last week of April, and there's activities all across the country. In Washington, D.C., we're having 3 days. On Tuesday, April 23rd, we have a protest rally in front of the Justice Department, and that'll take place from 11 to 3 o'clock, and I talked about the memorial service, remembering those Americans who had chronic pain who were abandoned by their physicians and committed suicide. That's on Tuesday, April 23rd. Tuesday, April 24th. On April 25th, we'll be at the U.S. Congress for a congressional briefing on chronic pain. And we're going to discuss topics include the horrendous suicide rate amongst chronic pain patients. We're going to talk about chronic pain treatment policies and the persecution of physicians. And so we're going to go before Congress with the truth about what policies are doing to destroy the lives of chronic pain patients. You have to understand that Congress is not hearing this truth because the lies that are out there are the reasons why they're making the bad decisions they're making about the so-called opioid crisis. And remember, doctors' prescriptions are not responsible for the overwhelming deaths of the opioid crisis. Illegal and illicit drugs from China and Mexico. And I like what Donald Trump said. He said that there are thousands of Americans who died from illegal drugs coming from China and Mexico coming across the border. And, of course, he mentioned the wall he wants to build, but he did say that was an overwhelming cause. And so what does the government do? Instead of going after what? The true drug dealers, they look in the doctors calling us drug dealers, members of drug cartels, and situations like mine. I'm the poster boy. I'm a U.S. medical political prisoner. I'm a POW along with other physicians from attack by the government because I had compassion and advocated for the poor and chronic pain patients. And on the 26th, that Thursday, we're having America's in Pain March on Washington Side No More chronic pain treatment rally at the U.S. Capitol Reflecting Pool. And we'll be there with speakers from 11 to 4. People are going to go up the steps and meet with the members of Congress. I'm going to have them come back and give testimonials about what their congressmen say, because this is an election year. And if these members of Congress that are showing themselves not only to be insensitive to chronic pain patients, why there's estimated over 100 million Americans that suffer with chronic pain, we're going to vote these folks out of office. Like, take, for instance, let me show you an example. Senator Mackey from Massachusetts. The Democratic senator voted consistently against all chronic pain treatment and chronic pain patients. He needs to go. So chronic pain patients in Massachusetts, Senator Mackey, are organizing, and they're going to confront Senator Mackey on his voting record, and they're going to work to put him out of office. Mm-hmm. So we have to be able to flex our political muscle because there's so many millions of Americans that are suffering chronic pain, and let the government know that's enough. So that rally is going to be Thursday, April 26th at the U.S. Capitol Reflecting Pool, and you can be a part of all our activities. In fact, we have a lot of local activities that week from April 23rd to April 30th, 2018, Chronic Pain Patients Advocacy Week, or Pain Patients Advocacy Week. And you get involved by going to the website, www.americanpaininstitute.org, www.painpatientscoalition.com, or www.blackdoctorsmatter.com. And you will find the information you need. And my phone number is 662-392-2016. Call me at any time, 662-392-2016. And I can show you how to get involved to stop this evil and attack against the citizens of this country by a government that's out of control, that is breaking the law itself, violating people's constitutional rights, all kind of prosecutorial misconduct. You know, and we got cases where investigators offer patients thousands of dollars to lie on doctors.
Really?
And yes, they will give you money to lie on your doctor. In my case, I was at a hearing before the Oklahoma Board of Narcotics being accused of overprescribing. And this is part of the record. The doctor, who was my colleague, I always try to get somebody in practice to lie on you. So he sat in the witness chair and he said, Dr. Myers is a great physician, and he does not overprescribe his patients. He does not run a pill mill. And I cannot sit here and testify any of those things against him. And they called a recess. Put him in a back room for about 10, 15 minutes. He came out after the recess and said, Dr. Myers is running a drug mill, a pill mill, and he overprescribes. Wow. So they went in there and threatened the man, threatened to arrest him and his family and all kind of stuff. They'll lie on me at a hearing at Oklahoma Board of Narcotics. It's a matter of record. Because they needed somebody to say the lie so they could what? Take action against me. And not only that, they're putting doctors in jail. 60 and 70-year-old doctors giving them 20-year sentences. And what their crime was? Treating chronic pain patients. Yeah. And that's why we have Pain Patients Advocacy Week. That's why we're in Washington, D.C. We're fighting for the rights of chronic pain patients to get the treatment that they need. And we're demanding that the Department of Justice be investigated by the United States Congress for its actions against the persecution of physicians who treat chronic pain. And we're demanding that the Congress look into the CDC with these opioid guidelines, which are the excuse they use for not treating patients with sickle cell, and they're dying at alarming rates. Are you listening to me? They are dying at alarming rates. A life expectancy of 48 down to below 30 because of the hysteria, the opioid crisis. But because they're African American, Dr. Oz doesn't talk about it. Dr. Gupta doesn't talk about it. You don't hear nothing on the national media. And black sickle cell patients are dying because of discrimination and abuse in these hospital emergency rooms who won't treat them properly, knowing that they need the proper combination of hydration, oxygen, and opioid medications. They refuse to do it, and the people die.
Well, Anita Thompson will be on tomorrow to go more in depth on the sickle cell disease and stuff like that, so she'll be able to explain that more. We have a few comments and questions on YouTube Live. Do you mind taking a few?
Of course, I'd love to.
Okay, all right. So Lindsay Gillum says, thank you for the wonderful memorial service and all you're doing. It means very much to me. And then we have a question from Danny Benton. He says, what can we do locally to help? Many CPP patients are too sick to get physically involved. And thank you, Reverend Doc, for so much for helping out.
Well, you know, I have my wheelchair advocates.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I created a group called Wheelchair Bedridden Chronic Pain Advocates, because you can advocate for your treatment and from your bed or your wheelchair by what? Contacting your 2 United States senators and your congressman. Everybody has 2 U.S. senators and a congressman. Yeah. I will help you get in touch with them if you need me to. Call me, 662-392-2016, and we'll do some advocacy work from your wheelchair and from your bed that you're bound to. Also, remember, all politics is local. So those members of Congress got to come home. And that's when you're on those telephones, and that's when you're on those wheelchairs, and you let them know that you are a member of the National Pain Patients Coalition, which you can join and be a member on Facebook, or you're a supporter of the National Pain Patients Coalition and whatever other chronic pain advocacy groups you work with, and let that member of Congress know that there's a congressional briefing on chronic pain, and you want to make sure that they're in attendance. Let those members of Congress know your situation, why you in that wheelchair, why you in that bed. They took your pain medicine from you. You were functioning, and you were able to do things until they what? Took your pain medicine away because the doctors were afraid to treat you, and you can't even find a treating physician now, and they're letting you die. Tell the congressman that it's too much of this suffering and unnecessary death, and that you demand that they investigate why the Department of Justice, the DEA, and the CDC are doing things to chronic pain patients that lead to them having had to choose suicide over living in chronic pain. Let them know that there's a difference between an addict and a chronic pain patient. That you do not abuse your drugs, and that you needed them. You've been taking them for years, and you're doing fine. All of a sudden, you go to your doctor's office, and they start tapering you off the drugs, take them off, and you start living in chronic pain. So you can do that from your wheelchair. You can do that from your hospital bed if you got a cell phone. And if you have a laptop computer, and I'll show you how it's done. And I'm also, with so many of these people running for Congress now, we have a number of candidates running against some of these members of Congress. Remember, all 435 members of the House of Representatives are up for vote this year, all of them.
Good point.
So there's a number of people running against them that are now pro-patient, pain patient advocates.
Mm-hmm.
So invite that congressman to come by your home and visit you in your wheelchair. Invite that congressman to come by your home and visit you in your bed. Let him understand what these policies are doing to you. I'll help you make sure he gets the invite. Tie a big red ribbon around your tree. Or get a family member to get a big giant red ribbon and put it around the bushes of your home.
Which is the
put that red ribbon on your door.
Right. Is that
so
the
people
sickle
can identify?
Ribbon?
What's that now?
Or is that the sickle cell ribbon, or is that the chronic pain awareness ribbon? The color.
That's the chronic pain awareness ribbon, red.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Remember, that's the same symbol that the advocates for ACT UP used when HIV wasn't being treated and the government policy was let HIV patients die. What did they do? ACT UP. Remember all that?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
They raised the cane and the pain, and now they have funding and treatment for HIV. We have to do the same thing for chronic pain.
Yep. Why is it important for an organization or a person to say that they belong to a coalition or coalitions? What does that do?
Well, you have to understand that when you are speaking to members of Congress, especially elected officials, the governor, state senator, state representative, state representative lives in your community, they got to know you're not by yourself. Too many times a chronic pain patient will call, try to make contact with their member of Congress, and you need to go through the health issue staff representative. Every member of Congress has a health issue staff representative. And your two senators and your congressman. And they'll let the congressman or the senator know to the health issue staff person that they have concerns about chronic pain. But the way they go about it, they convey a message like they're the only ones. No, your voice is with thousands of other chronic pain patients and persecuted physicians who are with you in your advocacy and your efforts telling the truth. And you need to let the congressman know and let the senator know you're not by yourself, as you're part of groups that are doing some advocacy. And Pain Patients Advocacy Week is April 23rd to the 30th, and invite them to participate, because it'll be right there in the U.S. Capitol with a congressional briefing, room 122, the Cannon House office building, and we're having a rally at the congressional pool, right, the reflecting pool.
Yep.
And they need to participate if they want your vote. And listen, chronic pain patients, don't be shy. Just tell these people you're not going to vote for them. They continue to vote against you getting your medication. You're not going to vote for them as they continue to support policies. Like, for instance, they just passed some legislation in the House of Representatives limiting your opioids.
Yes.
Now, what you have to understand is that if you're a member of Congress, you have two ears. You have a left ear and a right ear. Because you are a member of Congress, you sit on these committees. The DEA has to come to you, getting your permission to do what they do. The CDC has to come to you because you are oversight. There's only one group of citizens in the United States over the DEA and the Department of Justice and over the CDC, FDA, etc. That's Congress. So the congressman, his left ear, gets all this information from the DEA. Those guys are drug addicts, and those doctors are just selling medicines and all that garbage. Now, the right ear, that's your ear. If your member of Congress don't get the information from you in that right ear, what's going to happen? You're going to listen to all this garbage. So it's very important, even from your wheelchair in the bed, that you raise Cain with your member of Congress. Once you know that health issue staff person's name, you have their email address. If they're a staff person for a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, their first name dot last name at mail.house.gov. If they're a staff person for the United States Senate, it's their first name underscore last name at the name of the senator dot senate.gov. Feinstein, for instance, it'll be the first name and the underscore last name at feinstein.senate.gov. Call me. I'll help you. 662-392-2016. Call me. I'll pray for you. Most of my time now I spent praying for chronic pain patients. Because what did the Bible say? What you do to the least of these, you do unto me. God is a God of compassion. He saw them like a sheep without a shepherd and healed every form of sickness and disease among the people. And the blind men cried out, "O Son of David, have mercy upon me." And Jesus turned and healed them of their blindness. So I'm here. And you know what else, Janelle? Do I sound like I'm afraid of the DEA? Do I sound like I'm afraid of the Department of Justice?
You don't.
Don't let fear blind you. You know what's wrong with this government, Janelle?
What's that?
The people shouldn't fear the government. The government should fear the people.
You're exactly right. So why are so many people afraid to speak out? Why aren't we doing this?
Because we don't understand we have the power. Now, I've talked to a lot of people who say, well, you know, all these people on the payroll of Big Pharma, and they're bought out and all this stuff. Okay, I said, let me tell you something. I said, you ever hear a politician squeal? When you confront them and get them by the tail and say, we're not going to vote for you. We can see your voting record. And they're in a tight election. Why do you think all these people are resigning for this upcoming election? We have a record number of members of Congress resigning. I'm not running. I'm giving up because they know y'all coming after them with the vote. Okay? Exactly. You ever hear politicians squeal, Janelle? It's just like a pig. So you go after those politicians and you tell them the truth and you say, look, make sure that the Department of Justice stops persecuting physicians. Stop the CDC from persecuting chronic pain patients. We demand you do something about the overwhelming suicide rates. I remember I got into a conversation with the former Surgeon General Satcher. And he said, you know, Dr. Myers, your suicide rate is jumping up and we don't know why. I'm listening to this man. I said the suicide rate is jumping up because you have so many people committing suicide who are chronic pain patients not getting proper care, and they're choosing suicide over living with their chronic pain.
Yep.
Don't fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. These politicians are afraid of you because you have the power to put them out of office, and we need to start running candidates that are what? Speaking our language, and we'll stand up for that. And there's a number of members of Congress who are running, some great candidates going after these same members of Congress that are passing votes to limit the opioids, to go after your doctors who are treating you. Do not fear. The government ain't got all that power. They are afraid of you. And that's why they put out the impression that you can't do nothing with them, and they got all this power, and big pharma's paying people off. Blase, blase, blase. Lies.
Well, we have a ton of comments right now on YouTube Live, and somebody says, Dr. K always says we need a huge movement, for, like the Martin Luther King big movement. They're saying hashtag disable the vote, which I like. That's a good one. So, yeah, if everybody can do their own thing, that would be awesome if they just did that. You also have a 24-hour radio marathon during – you have that every year, correct? Can you talk about a little bit about that and what you're doing on that?
Well, we have a 24-hour radio-hour marathon for chronic pain patients, and it consists of interviews and information for 24 hours. That's going to take place the first day of Pain Patient Advocacy Week, which is 23rd of April. Lisa Weltman did a great job. You can go to her website and get a copy of a disc of the 24-hour Pain Patients Marathon from last year. And her website is painresistance.net. Lisa, don't beat me up if I got it wrong. Painresistance.net or painresistance.com. Please forgive me, Lisa. But if you go to that, pain resistance, excuse me. Painresistance.net or painresistance.com. Call me. I think it's one of those two sites. You can go to her website, and she's over the Pain Resistance Network, and you can just download all his interviews. I mean, interviews from doctors, and we got law enforcement people. Are you aware of this, Janelle? Mm-hmm. We got law enforcement people in our corner now. There is a FBI agent by the name of Fogg who sued the DEA and got millions of dollars because they were targeting. He was in the meetings where they were targeting citizens. They target pain patients and doctors who treat pain patients. Okay? And he sued and won. CVS Pharmacy. We have a boycott nationwide against CVS Pharmacy. Why? Because they have policies now. You only get 1 week worth of prescriptions, and if you get over 90 mil equivalents of a medication to treat your pain, they won't fill it.
Is this
and they want to start all these minute clinics all over the country where the people go into CVS, see a nurse practitioner or PA, get a prescription. It was a big money-making scheme to take over primary care medicine. And have you heard the latest reports, Janelle? It's a big flop because so many people are boycotting CVS Pharmacy. Thank you.
Yep. I changed from CVS from 20-some years to a mom-and-pop place.
It's better for you to deal with the local pharmacists and get your needs met. And Walgreens is joining in.
Yep. Are they?
Yes. You go to Walgreens now, they won't fit. They got the same policy as CVS. Now, what CVS would do, you would go to the CVS pharmacist, and they would talk about your doctor. Dr. Kill, man, he's in trouble. Dr. Kill, this is an example I'm just talking about. He's killing people. He's under investigation about it. Just lying like a dog. So there's one physician sued CVS for what? Libel, and won and got $1 million. That was a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
There was another doctor in California who sued the California State Medical Board because of discrimination against black physicians. He proved it, and he got and won his case. But he ended up mysteriously dead. Dr. Jackson, he's on a website. He ended up mysteriously dead 4 days later. Even one of our leading advocates for the history of chronic pain advocacy, Siobhan Reynolds, died mysteriously in a plane crash.
Well, that's what they do now. Yeah. There's been Erin Elizabeth Mercola, Dr. Mercola's wife or girlfriend, I'm not sure, but she's been covering all of these doctors' mysterious deaths for years now. And they're young, younger. They die under mysterious conditions. I didn't realize it was with this too. I thought it was mostly holistic doctors and stuff. So now they're doing it with just regular doctors that are not following the program.
Right, because remember, I made the claim at the beginning of this program. Everybody listen to me. Use my name, Reverend Dr. Ronald V. Myers, Sr., M.D. Dr. Myers says that they're committing genocide against chronic pain patients. Quote me. Dr. Myers made the example of genocide against sickle cell anemia chronic pain patients, like the Black Panthers claimed in 1970, and now in 2018, there's genocide against chronic pain patients. And if you're not going along with the program, you got to understand, the government is trying to save money. They don't want to pay for all that care for chronic pain patients. Also, we'll set some policies up to make sure they don't get care and die. Quote me. There is a genocide against chronic pain patients in America. And what definition did you read of genocide? Purposeful what? Targeting of a group of people. It doesn't have to be race. It could be medical condition with policies, procedures, and actions that lead to their death. Now, you're going to sit around here, chronic pain patients, even though you're in a wheelchair, you're in bed, you're going to sit around here and not stand up against this evil?
We have to.
It's your government. Don't be surprised. I'm telling you, I'm African American. I grew up with heroin in my community. Some of the greatest jazz musicians were heroin addicts.
Yep.
Heroin was prominent in our community. When we had the problem in the black community, you think we had drug treatment? No, they just put us in jail. Look at the Vietnam War. 1 in 3 of those veterans came back from the Vietnam War with a drug problem. Was that caused by a doctor's prescription?
Nope.
It's only when the drugs went into the suburbs, white suburbs, and white rural America, they come up with all this stuff. The need for treatment and doctor's prescriptions are not the major cause. Let me tell you something. Illegal and illicit drugs. Illegal and illicit drugs. Illegal and illicit drugs are the cause of the opioid death crisis, the major cause of in America. Don't listen to these lies when they say, you know what, it started off with a doctor's prescription and it turned them into a junkie, and then they turned to heroin and died. So it wasn't for those prescriptions those doctors wrote way back there in the beginning, there would be no epidemic of opioid deaths. I'm telling you, it's a lie. Stand up against the lie. Stop the dying.
Yeah. Well, and you said what they can easily do is we have 2 senators and 1 congressman in each state, right? We could write letters.
Everybody has 2 senators and 1 Congress. Write this phone number down. 202-224-3121. I'll repeat it. 202-224-3121. And it will give you the name of your senators and your congressmen if you got your zip code. Call the White House. 202-456-1414. 202-456-1414. Talk to the Office of Public Liaison you want to talk to the so-called drug czar for the Trump administration. And like I said, I like Donald Trump when he went out there and told the truth about the fact that most Americans are dying from illegal and illicit drugs coming from China and Mexico, crossing the border, being sold on the street illicitly. In fact, you know, you used to be able to just go and order drugs from China. You can order some carfentanil and fentanyl. But they finally indicted about 3 or 4 Chinese businessmen for their drug trade. And then all of a sudden now that got quiet. And don't forget about the corruption in the DEA itself. Remember the DEA office in New Orleans? Well, those a bunch of those DEA agents got, what, arrested and convicted of what? Illegal activities when it comes to what they were doing with their so-called actions against drugs. And remember, everybody, listen to me. You trust this government? I'm African American. I'm telling you, they flooded our community with drugs during the Iran-Contra. Are you listening to me? The CIA worked to flood the black community with cocaine and other illegal drugs. Your government. And you're going to talk about some drug crisis in the black community, and you're going to ignore that history?
Right.
Yes, Janelle, there is purposeful efforts and policy by this government that makes sure the chronic pain patients die. There are perfect efforts in this government that make sure that compassionate physicians who treat them with chronic pain lose their livelihood, get to these kangaroo courts, get constitutional rights. Let me tell you something. I got the boy. You're getting me fired up. It's not even Sunday. I know a physician that they arrested, only had 150 chronic pain patients. They arrested him, said he was overprescribing. Okay? He ain't never been to court. Did you know they took all his assets? $6 million they took of this man's money. Hadn't even had a hearing. Another physician they arrested falsely with these crazy charges. Look up, and you know what happened? They took the man's money and took his artwork off his wall. Are you listening to me? The man sitting down there watching TV, you know, all of a sudden, here come a SWAT team knocking on his door. Hey, this is the United States of America, okay? So they begin to seize the assets of doctors and some of the billions of dollars, and then I haven't even been to court. It's called forfeit seizure. We got to stop them from stealing the assets of innocent people, especially physicians, when they charge them with these crazy charges. Now, the reason why when they let me tell you something, Janelle, so funny. The reason why they didn't stick my ass is I'm a Baptist minister, medical missionary. I live in a double-wide trailer across from what was a cotton field. I ain't got no money. Only money I have, I give to the poor. So they looked at my account and said, "Oh man, there's nothing here to seize."
Well, plus, it wouldn't mean anyway. I wanted to ask you, and why did you become ordained?
Well, I was concerned about. When I got my medical training, I wanted to serve in the most neediest people in America. My motivation wasn't making money and all living in the suburbs and all. There's nothing wrong with that. Look, listen, you know another thing too. What's wrong with a doctor making some money? It's crazy. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. But anyway, in my case, I took a vow of poverty, and I dedicated my life to serving the poorest people in America here in the Mississippi Delta, America's third world. And I dedicated my life to that because I felt God had called me to this kind of work. So when I say I'm an ordained and commissioned medical missionary, that means the evidence of my calling by God was confirmed by other pastors and ministers and churches, and they laid hands on me and commissioned me to come to the Mississippi Delta to serve the poorest of the poor. And I've done that my whole life. Now, somebody in the DEA office wasn't thinking. They're not that smart. Why would you go after a man like me knowing full well?
What are you going to lose, right?
Knowing full well it's going to come back and bite you in your butt. Because what did Jesus say? What did the Word of God say? I'm not trying to turn everybody. I'm not trying to be religious. I'm going to tell you what I do not touch my prophet. Cause him no harm. And what did Dr. Martin Luther King say? Truth cast to the ground will always rise up. America, I just been telling you the truth. Yes, we need a movement. We got one. Start off during this election year. Vote the bums out of office. Call me. Participate in Pain Patients Advocacy Week in a radio marathon, painresistance.net. Now I got it right. www.painresistance.net. Get a copy of the marathon, and we're going to put a schedule up there for this year's marathon. We're going to be in Congress. You know what is really funny, Janelle? I got people sending me Facebook pages saying this congressional briefing, first of all, it's different between a briefing and a hearing. Hearing is before a committee of Congress. A briefing is before all the staff and some members of Congress will come. You need to have a briefing so you can give the congressman the correct information. You realize how they lying to these members of Congress? It's probably the only ones telling the truth is Rand Paul. You know why Rand Paul's telling the truth now, Janelle? Didn't he break 7 ribs?
Oh, okay.
Something happened with his neighbor, you know?
Something like knows what it's like, right?
Yeah, it sounded like he grew up in the ghetto or something. Some neighbor beat him up or something, broke his ribs. Do you think a 7-day supply of pain medicine was going to help him?
Right. No, he's going to be on that for a while.
Okay, yeah, but he broke 7 ribs.
Right. Somebody asked from YouTube Live, Danny Benton, does Dr. Myers ever have a chance of getting his CSA license back?
Oh, yes, I'm fighting now at the state of Oklahoma. The governor's name is Mary Fallon. The the state attorney general that went after me was Pruitt, the same one of the EPA. It's really funny, Janelle, because remember those hearings? Scott Pruitt had those hearings so he could become the EPA director. I had members of Congress laying in wait for him to come so he can jump all over him about why he took the medical license away from a Baptist medical missionary serving the poor and chronic pain. That's when they dropped all the charges. All of a sudden, he dropped all the charges. But guess what? The new attorney general decided to pick him up.
Why did they do that? I mean, like, they didn't learn from the first time?
You have an evil system. Didn't I just tell you that they accuse doctors and take all their assets, and they haven't even been to court without a hearing? Why do we put up with giving the Department of Justice and law enforcement power to take all your assets? You're not even guilty. And when they prove you innocent, guess what, Janelle? You don't get them back. If they took $6 million of Dr. Stephen Henson's assets, he's the physician in Kansas I'm talking about, and he found that they dropped the case, so he's innocent. Did he get his $6 million back? No. But guess what? They took that money and did what? Made sure that they keep themselves funded. Look for yourself. Billions of dollars are going into the Department of Justice from forfeit seizure of innocent citizens. So I'm fighting it, yes. And my website is www.myersfoundation.net, MYERS Foundation.net.
Yep, I got that up. I just wanted to ask you a few questions. Good. I hope you please keep fighting and don't ever stop. You know, well, you're not going to stop anyway because you have no fear. It seems like, which is amazing, and we could all take lessons from that. I just wanted to ask you a few questions because we have to wrap up here soon. But
sure.
Chronic Pain Awareness Month, that is in September, and I know you do stuff with Sickle Cell Awareness Month too. Why did they pick the 16th of the day? And what's going on with that month? And why did you support that? Why are you supporting that?
Well, it's amazing that Chronic Pain Awareness Month and Sickle Cell Awareness Month are the same month, September, and they're both chronic pain conditions. But you got to realize that the sickle cell community is mostly African American, and they work closely with the Congressional Black Caucus because Black Caucus members of Congress in their districts are a lot of chronic pain people with sickle cell. And then you have the chronic pain advocacy community, but they never have gotten together until recently. We are working together now. We are one group. Sickle cell anemia, RSD, failed back syndrome, chronic pancreatitis, etc. We're forming coalitions now. We're working together. In fact, the reason why I got a room for a congressional briefing, I have a congressional hearing room in the U.S. Congress because my Congressman Benny Thompson reserved it for me. So, yes, we are working together during September for awareness. Now, there's a difference between awareness and advocacy. Don't get it mixed up. Advocacy is when you go after an aggressive way and demand justice. Awareness makes you aware of what's going on. Advocacy changes the situation. And the only way the situation is going to change is through what? Congress. Mm-hmm. So we are being very purposeful, we're being demanding, and we're going to go right to the members of Congress and demand they do something. Or guess what, buddy? Pack your bags and get another job. We're going to vote you out.
Danny from YouTube wants to know, if the doc gets his CSA license back, is he willing to take on a Louisiana CPP?
Well, I had a Louisiana license, but you know, the best medical board, the board that treated me with the most compassion and support was the Louisiana State Medical Board. I did my residency in Bogalusa, Louisiana. Also, I did training in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. You see, I said New Orleans, so you know I was from there. A lot of people not from there say New Orleans is New Orleans.
Right. Right.
At Tulane University and Charity Hospital before Katrina. But the Louisiana State Medical Board, I sat there with the president and the board attorney, and they said, look, we're not going to hurt you. Just don't renew your license. They were very nice to me and said, you got to make sure Oklahoma straightens itself out. And, in fact, the attorney for the Louisiana State Medical Board said, look, Dr. Myers, just wait 1 year and renew your license. All you got to do, I read over everything. I said, man, I got no $72,000 for fines. Oklahoma State Medical Board charged me $41,000 for their investigation. I looked at the bill, and it wasn't even about me, a lot of those charges. The Oklahoma State Board of Narcotics charged me $35,000 in fines. And so I have to pay those fines in order to get my DEA and back and my license back because I was forced to surrender my license. And so right now, I got so many people writing and calling up there to Oklahoma. The governor of Oklahoma, Mary Fallon, she speaks very highly of me. But it's that state attorney general mixed up with the DEA and the Department of Justice. Let me tell you something. If you want to know who's the real racketeering, they charge me with racketeering, right? In other words, I'm maintaining a drug house, and I'm a racketeer like Al Capone. The real racketeering is the law enforcement, Department of Justice, the DEA. Are you listening to me? And state medical boards. They have formed a racketeering operation to destroy the lives of doctors who treat chronic pain patients and to go after doctors who are black and other physicians of color, and it's their pattern, and they need to be stopped.
What do you think of the Second Amendment? And it's not the right to bear arms, but more of militias, because we have a lot of comments of, we need to know more about the Second Amendment. What do you think of that?
Yes, you need to know about the Second Amendment, but your power is the First Amendment. That is your right for what? Peaceful assembly and protest.
Oh.
So, yes, the Second Amendment is about your right to bear arms. Your First Amendment right is about the right for peaceful assembly and protest. So you need to get on those state capitals with them picket signs You go up there and tell them state rep. The amazing thing about state legislatures is, Janelle.
What's that?
Your state representative lives in your community. His kids go to school with your kids. Mm-hmm. You go over and go shopping. He's there shopping. His wife is there shopping, getting groceries in the same. And you're not demanding from the state representative to do what's right when it comes to the treatment of chronic pain patients. And you got this state representative and the state senator voting against your getting the treatment you need, and he sits up there living in your community. You're not doing nothing about it. Get rid of them and put some people in there that are listening to you. Right?
Senators live in the community, and congressmen, they're in Washington, but they have to come home at some time, right? So
all politics is Janelle. All politics is what? All politics is local.
That's true.
Okay.
And we can vote who we want in and out, and we have the power, not them.
You know, it's real funny. Let me tell you a story. There was a senator in Arkansas, and I taught my people how to write letters and protest, and we picketed the medical board, we picketed the legislature. So we went after the United States senators. So this one senator went to the particular church there in Arkansas, and I had my people in the parking lot waiting for him to come out of church and get in his car. You know what he said? You must be working with Reverend Dr. Myers. And that was Senator Pryor. He had people confronting him when he left church. And there's nothing illegal about it. You don't want a public parking lot standing there waiting for your senator to come out and talk to him. Don't get these people no rest. Because remember, left ear, right ear. You got all these lobbyists paid this money, and they trying to use their corruption with money and corrupt your member of Congress. Your right ear is for you to be listening and changing him. And I'm going to tell you, there's going to be a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth during this election. And I tell people, don't vote Republican. Don't vote Democrat. Don't vote independent. Vote your pain. You got bad lawmakers who are Democrats voting against chronic pain patients. You got bad lawmakers who are Republicans voting against chronic pain patients. You have bad lawmakers who are independent voting against chronic pain. Vote your pain, not your party.
I love that. Well, Doc Myers, do you have anything else you would like to add before we get going here? And by the way, we are playing some of your music live.
Morgan.
What's that?
Morgan. It's called the name of the song.
Oh, we're going to be playing your song Morgan at the end of our show tonight. So I just want to let you know.
I love you. That's about Lee Morgan, my favorite jazz musician. But listen, I want to leave you with this.
Yeah.
Together we stand, united we fall. Very simple. We need to come together, chronic pain patients, physicians who are persecuted, with our family members, and stand up against these evil crimes our government's doing against us and put an end to it. So join me, the National Pain Patients Coalition. Join me, the American Pain Institute, your physician, and other chronic pain advocacy organizations. We're going to be in Washington. We're going to have another 24-hour radio marathon. Wear those red ribbons in your community. Get together and show that beautiful video, The Painful Truth. You can do things locally. Put red ribbons around your tree, your house. Wear red ribbons if you can't make it to Washington. There's never going to be a gathering of thousands of chronic pain patients because they're too sick. But we can use the social media, and we can put an end to this, not just harassment, but what? The genocide of chronic pain patients in America.
Well, Reverend Doc Myers, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. We will have all of your information up on our website, and we are going to play your song Morgan now. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
to Conspiracies Against Wellness with your host, Janelle Elgaway. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and callers, and not necessarily those of EXG LLC, its employees, or sponsors. Copyright 2018 by EXG LLC. All rights reserved.